Let's go Dolphins! There's a change being discussed, bold, aggressive, and honestly, a little unexpected, that could completely change the team's direction for next season. Some fans will love it, others will question everything, but one thing is certain, if this actually happens, no one will be indifferent. We're talking about a strategy that goes against what many believe the front office would do. Instead of playing it safe, instead of waiting patiently, there's a real possibility Miami will make a move that demonstrates confidence, the kind of move that says, we're not here to compete, we're here to dominate. But here's the point, this decision comes with risks. Real risks. And what I'm about to reveal might make you rethink everything you expected from this offseason. Before I explain everything, I need to know your opinion. If you truly believe this team is about to achieve something special, click the like button right now. And I want to see the true optimists appear in the comments. Right, go Dolphins! This is our year. Because what I'm about to say might test your faith in this team. Now let's get straight into it. The headline move? Miami trading up from pick 11 to pick 7. Yes, you heard that right. A jump into the top 10, and here's the shocking part, it only cost a third-round pick, number 87 overall. According to the scenario, this deal came from Washington, not initiated by Miami, which makes it even more intriguing. Realistically, would a team give up that position for such a price? Probably not. But if that opportunity ever appeared on draft night, it's hard to argue Miami shouldn't at least consider it. And the reason behind the move becomes crystal clear, securing an elite defensive talent before the board collapses. With top targets like Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles already gone inside the top 6, Miami pivots to one name. Ruben Bain Jr., the edge rusher out of Miami, becomes the cornerstone of this aggressive strategy. This is where things start to make a lot of sense. The Dolphins have a real need at edge rusher. Pairing Bain with Chop Robinson, Joshua Che, and David Ajabu suddenly gives this defense a level of explosiveness and depth that could change games. There are concerns about Bain's arm length, no doubt. But what stands out, and what makes scouts excited, is his physicality, his violence at the point of attack, and his relentless motor. Those traits can't be taught. And here's something that might surprise you, even if Bain doesn't fully translate as a pure edge at the next level, there's flexibility to move him inside if needed. With veterans aging and young players still developing, that versatility becomes extremely valuable. Now, after making that bold move up, Miami still holds pick 30, and instead of doubling down on the defensive line, they pivot to the secondary. The selection? Chris Johnson, cornerback out of San Diego State. A name that's been quietly rising and, according to this scenario, someone both Sullivan and defensive minds within the organization are high on. What makes Johnson stand out is his production and athletic profile. We're talking about a player who held opposing quarterbacks to a 16.7 rating when targeted. That's elite-level performance. Add in his length, instincts, and consistency on tape, and you start to understand why Miami would prioritize him here. There's also a bigger picture element to this pick. With a coaching background rooted in secondary play, it's becoming increasingly likely that Miami invests heavily in defensive backs early in the draft. Johnson fits that mold perfectly, a player who could contribute immediately and develop into a long-term piece in the secondary. So just in the first round alone, you're looking at a scenario where Miami adds a high-upside edge rusher and a lockdown corner. That's not just filling needs, that's reshaping the identity of the defense. And we're only getting started. Because once you move into day 2 and beyond, the strategy shifts again, focusing on versatility, depth, and competition across the roster, especially in the trenches. Now continuing from where we left off, because things start to get even more strategic, and honestly, a bit more controversial, as the Miami Dolphins move into the second and third rounds of this mock draft. At pick 43, the focus shifts directly to the offensive line, and the name called is Chase Bicent out of Texas A&M. This is not just a depth move, this is a clear statement about what the front office wants to build in the trenches. One word keeps coming up when evaluating this pick: versatility. That's something John Eric Sullivan has emphasized repeatedly, and Bicent fits that mold perfectly. He's primarily played left guard over the past 2 seasons, but earlier in his college career, he logged over 500 snaps at right tackle. That kind of flexibility is exactly what Miami seems to be targeting, players who can plug multiple holes depending on how the roster evolves. And let's be real, the Dolphins need that. There are still questions about consistency across the offensive line, especially with unproven pieces and injury concerns lingering around key positions. Bicent isn't just versatile, he's also NFL ready in a lot of ways. Strong anchor, good athleticism, and a high football IQ when it comes to recognizing stunts and defensive schemes. This is the type of player who could realistically compete for a starting job right away. Then we move into the third round, and this is where things get really interesting because Miami starts taking swings on upside and explosiveness. First up, wide receiver Ted Hurst. Now this is one of those my guy selections, and you can understand why. At nearly 6 feet 4 inches, running in the 4.4s, with elite athletic testing numbers, Hurst brings a physical presence that Miami's receiver room could absolutely use. What stands out even more is how he plays the game. He's aggressive at the catch point, fights for the ball, and once he has it in his hands, he's surprisingly elusive. Yes, there's the usual concern about coming from a smaller program like Georgia State, but we've seen time and time again that talent translates, regardless of school size. And if Hurst hits, you're potentially looking at a major steal in the third round. But Miami doesn't stop there. At pick 90, they double down on the offensive line again with Caleb Tiernan from Northwestern, and this might quietly be one of the best value picks in the entire mock. There's legitimate buzz that Tiernan could go much earlier, possibly even late second round, yet here he is falling into Miami's lap. He's a massive presence at 6 feet 8 inches, over 320 pounds, with the kind of footwork that suggests he could transition inside if needed. And that's the key again, flexibility. Imagine this scenario. Suddenly you have Bison Tiz, Tiernan, Austin Jackson, Jamari Salyer, and Savaiania all competing for 3 spots. That's not just depth, that's real competition, the kind that elevates the entire unit. And let's not ignore the long-term implications. With contract situations and durability concerns at certain positions, building this kind of depth now could prevent major issues later in the season. Finally, Miami wraps up this 3-round stretch with another defensive addition, Sean Barham, edge rusher out of Michigan. This is where you take a calculated gamble. Barham isn't a polished product yet, that's clear. But the raw tools? They're absolutely there. High motor, strong against the run, and relentless in pursuit. When you watch him, one thing jumps out immediately, effort. He doesn't quit on plays. Ever. And those are the types of players that coaching staffs love to develop. Add in his athletic upside, and you start to see why this could be a sneaky, impactful pick down the line. So when you step back and look at the full picture, here's what Miami potentially walks away with in just 3 rounds. An explosive edge rusher with star potential in Ruben Bain Jr., a highly productive cornerback in Chris Johnson, 2 versatile offensive linemen who could compete immediately, a high upside wide receiver with size and speed, and another developmental edge rusher with serious motor and upside. It's aggressive. It's bold, and it's built around addressing key weaknesses while also planning for the future. And when you really take a step back and connect all the dots, this entire approach starts to reveal something deeper about what the Miami Dolphins could be trying to build heading into 2026. This isn't just about filling holes. This is about creating internal competition at multiple levels of the roster, something that championship teams consistently have. Look at what happens if even 2 or 3 of these picks hit early. Suddenly, the defensive front becomes faster, more aggressive, and far more unpredictable with Ruben Bain Jr. and Sean Barham rotating in. The secondary gains a potential lockdown piece in Chris Johnson. And offensively, the line, which has been a question mark at times, transforms into a unit where nobody's